All right, let's talk about what is probably the single biggest hurdle for anyone learning Mandarin Chinese. Yep, we're talking about the tones. If you can get these right, the whole language just clicks. But if you get them wrong, well, things can get confusing and honestly, kind of awkward, really fast. And just to show you how high the stakes are, check this out. The syllable sheng can mean completely different things. For example, you've got Shanghai, that's the city, Shanghai. But then there's Shanghai, which means to harm or to injure. So yeah, a tiny little shift in your pitch completely changes the meaning. It's that critical. So let's really get to the bottom of this. Tones in Mandarin aren't just for adding a little flavor or emotion. No, no. They are the absolute foundation of meaning. Now, if you found tones to be a challenge, trust me, you are not alone. It really boils down to two big things. First, there's the sheer memory game of matching the right tone to every single character. And second, there's the vocal gymnastics you have to do to switch between them smoothly when you're talking. This is probably the best way to frame it. In English, if I raise the pitch of my voice, it probably means I'm asking a question or I'm excited, right? It's about attitude. But in Chinese, doing that same thing, changing your pitch, doesn't just change the emotion, it can create a totally different word with a completely different dictionary definition. So how do we start to tackle this? Well, we're going to meet the four main characters in this story, the tones themselves. Let's break them down one by one. First up, we've got the first tone. This one's easy, it's high, it's flat, and you just hold it there. Think of it like a clear, steady musical note. No dips, no rises, just ah. Next is the second tone. This one goes up. The absolute best way to remember it is to just think about how your voice naturally rises when you ask a question like, what? Or, huh? It's that same upward slide. Then we have the third tone. Okay, this is usually the trickiest one for people. It's a dipping tone. Your voice goes down, and then it comes back up. And because it's got that whole round trip to make, it's also the longest of the four tones. And finally, the fourth tone. This one is sharp, quick, and it falls. Imagine you're saying a command with a bit of force like stop or down. It's the fastest and most definite sounding tone. So here's a fantastic little summary of everything. And pay special attention to that pitch column. Just think of your voice on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 is your highest pitch and 1 is your lowest. You can see the first tone, ma, just stays right up there at 5-5. Meanwhile, the fourth tone, ma, takes this dramatic dive from 5 all the way down to 1. Okay, but here's a super important point. You almost never hear these tones all by themselves in the wild. In real life, tones work together, and most of the time, they work in pairs. And this is exactly why practicing tone pairs is so important. You see, the huge majority of words in Mandarin are actually made of two characters. That means two syllables, and that means two tones, one right after the other. If you can master these combos, you're well on your way. Okay, so just when you think you've got the rules down, spoken Chinese throws a couple of curveballs at you. But don't worry, these two big exceptions are actually here to make the language flow a lot more naturally. This right here is the #1 most important tone change rule you have to know. When you get two of those dipping third tones in a row, like in the famous greeting ni hao, the first one actually changes. You say it like a rising second tone. So even though it's written ni hao, it's spoken ni hao. So why does this happen? Is it just to confuse you? Not at all. It's because trying to say two of those long, dipping third tones back to back is actually pretty slow and awkward. This little change makes it all flow so much better. It just sounds more natural. The other exception to know is the neutral tone. You can think of it as a kind of non-tone. It doesn't have its own fixed pitch. Instead, it's just this unstressed, light, short syllable, and its pitch kind of depends on whatever tone came right before it. So knowing all these rules is one thing, but being able to actually make these sounds correctly without stopping to think about it, well, that's a whole other challenge. And that's where muscle memory comes in. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? You can understand the theory of tones in like 5 minutes, but to actually do it, to master it, that only comes from one thing: repetition and practice. I think the absolute best way to think about this is like learning a musical instrument. You don't just understand where the notes are on a piano, right? You practice your scales over and over and over until your fingers just know where to go without thinking. It's the exact same idea for tones. You're training the muscles in your voice. So there you have it. You now have the map. You have the foundational guide for understanding and, more importantly, producing Chinese tones. From the four main types to the little exceptions that make it all work, the intellectual part is done. The real journey of practice, well, that starts right now.